So thank you for joining us today. You're in for a special treat. Today we have award-winning artist and spoken word poet and storyteller Hannah Hasan, as well as several special guests that she will introduce. If you're not familiar, Hannah Hasan has written several books, but most recently she has published a book called I Love Us, which centers around themes of justice, self-love, home, community, and much more. Hannah's poetry tells stories of peoples dedicated to radical community love, which is what we need to hear about more than ever. So this program is going to include some live performances. So I'm going to turn it over to the amazing Hannah Hasan. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Hello, everyone. My name is Hannah Hasan. I'm going to get started. You've got to build yourself up. Be your own biggest fan. You have to do everything to convince yourself that the world is in your hands. You've got to hold your head high and elevate your mind. You've got a status quo to defy, and you're running short on time. You've got to capture every second, and you've got to make bold decisions. You've got to cherish every blessing. You make your own life worth living. You've got to work and sweat, dream and believe that you are what you've been waiting for, that you can achieve. You've got to get used to failure and then build yourself back up. You can't give way to the pressure. You re-navigate when you get stuck. And you've got to get okay with you and everything that makes you unique. You command the attention of the room. You make them listen when you speak. You've got to trust your instincts and walk in faith. You have to train yourself to strategically think that you're going to win this race. And you have to be kind and persistent, captivating and vivid, unforgettable and crazy. And you've got to work on this daily because you hold your destiny in every fiber of your being. You define your life and you will determine its meaning. You have been given all the tools that you need, and you can set this world on fire if you'll just live by this creed. In the face of the status quo, you have to remain viciously defiant. Yes, you've got to take hold of all of these little things if you want to live like a giant. Thank you. So I want to invite in someone. Those of you who are following along here who maybe know me and know my work has probably seen this person with me before. And she'll be joining me some tonight. Hannah Hasan, enter the chat. Hi, Sade.
Hey, Hannah. Good evening, everyone.
So y'all at home, I asked Sade to join us. This is my partner, my storytelling partner. We own a business called Epic Tribe, where we center stories together. We do storytelling events and classes and things of that nature. I asked Sade to join me because I don't want this today to just be me doing poems and that's it. I want to make sure that I'm telling you all the small nuggets, the stories behind and beside the poems. And because Sade and I work together so much, she's experienced all of these poems many times. She probably knows all of the stories behind them, but I wanted to make sure that I brought someone along for the ride who understands the journey and knows the stories. Sade, how are you feeling about it being Poetry Month?
I'm excited about it being Poetry Month. Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. I'm really excited about it being Poetry Month. You know, poetry is an art form. It's a form of writing that has its own special identity, like in the world of writing, right? Mm-hmm. There's a way that poetry is able to take ideas, thoughts, words, and in some cases condense them. There's obviously, poems that are longer,
Yeah.
but we're really kind of condensing thoughts and ideas and feelings into pieces that feel digestible. They move us. So I really enjoy poetry, yours especially. So I'm very excited about Poetry Month. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming along with me. You guys, those of you who are just joining, you might have heard at the beginning, I have a book coming up pretty soon. It will drop, I think, at the end of this month, and it's called I Love Us. Sade has worked on this book with me, with helping me sort of put some of the things together with it. And one of the poems that all of the poems that you hear tonight are in the book. One of the poems that you just heard, well, the poem you just heard is called How to Live Like a Giant. How to Live Like a Giant, I call it my theme poem. If I'm going to write a book and share poems that are called I Love Us, I could not do that without How to Live Like a Giant. That poem came along a few years ago, many years ago, actually. I was on the phone with my mother, and we were talking about the way that she and my father raised me and my 5 siblings. And it just hit me, like, you all taught us to be giant, to not live small or play small or any of those things. And I hung up with her right away, and I wrote the poem, and I called my dad and my mom, and I read it to them. And my dad said, yeah, that sounds about right. And now I share How to Live Like a Giant often to inspire and empower others, but more so than anything to inspire and empower myself. And most of my poetry is for that. I do a lot of commissioned work, meaning that organizations and groups hire me to come in and write and share poems for different events. And a lot of those are social justice style events. Sade, what I'll ask of you today as we sort of go on this journey together tonight is after I do each piece, okay? I didn't give you any, I literally, you guys at home, I called her and told her, I need you to come on this with me, and didn't give her any of the stuff because I wanted it to feel organic. So you know many of these pieces, but I'm going to share them. And after each piece, I want you to ask me whatever questions you might have, and then whatever questions the people at home, if they send some in the comments, might have, and we'll chop it up real quick after each piece. Is that cool?
Yeah, that is cool. I was going to remind people that they can put questions, thoughts, comments in the chat, and we'll try our best to address them as we go through. But I do want to ask you, How to Live Like a Giant is a very inspirational poem for me. And a lot of the messaging in it is about what you have to do, like what you have to find in yourself to live like a giant. And I want to know what that means for you. Like, how do you do that in your work?
I approach difficult topics in my work. Most of the time, the organizations or groups or whatever that bring me in are those that do the hard work in the community, in the world, and they want me to write a piece about something going on that can be difficult, almost triggering and things like that for people to hear and experience. So I approach everything that I do with as much love and care as I can, but also courage. And that's where that giant piece comes in. You know what? Let's go into this first piece.
Okay.
And I think that will help to answer that. You all, this poem is one of the first poems that really stood out to me when I started thinking about sharing poems with you all that were commissioned pieces. So someone called me up and said, we need this poem for this thing. This was a poem that was really outside of my comfort zone. It was during the time when we had essentially a crisis, and we still do, at our borders. I was asked to write a poem for a really big rally that was happening here in Charlotte. They were happening all over the country. I was asked to write this poem, I think, the day before the rally. And I was a little bit afraid because I didn't feel like I had enough agency within this community to write the piece. But I'll share with you afterwards what I pulled from in order to pull it out. So y'all good? Sade, you good? You think I can go straight into this?
Go straight into it.
All right, y'all. So Sade will be back with us in a minute. I'm going to share a piece that was written for a rally here in Charlotte called Cages. Did you hear about the children in cages? Their tiny hands gripping the ice-cold metal bars, their blood-curdling screams. Did you hear about the children in cages? Did it enrage you, jolt you out of your slumber, interrupt the peace of your American dreams? Did you hear about the families, the parents, feet bloody, bruised, sliced wide open and exposed, seeking to escape persecution, risking literally everything to live a life of dignity, freedom, and hope? Mama running, heat exhausted and dehydrated, a toddler, a 10-year-old, her newborn baby, all separated. Did you hear about the detention centers? That it's worse than even the news makes it seem. The deportation, the segregation, ice cold evil in our treatment of real, live human beings. And they say, you can judge a people by the way that they treat their youth. And since there is no such thing as someone else's children, their cries will bear witness. Their trauma is our truth. Did you hear about America? How buried beneath her lands is a history that haunts her daily. It's the blood of the native people and the spirits of those who were bound by slavery. She's never really dealt with the aftermath of her own atrocities, held herself king of the world, but cannot find a way to treat her sisters and brothers with dignity, empathy, drew lines in God's land, wrote her name in his sand, created barriers and borders, and closed herself in, closed herself off, villainized and otherized, so fear at the highest cost, burnt bridges and built walls. Use the brown and vulnerable to do the hardest of work, yet pay them the least. Paint them as rapists and murderers, so the divisive seed rob their culture for profit, ethnic cleanse, and repeat. Did you hear about America? Did you hear the children cry? Did you raise up and resist, or did you turn a blind eye? Close your door, lock your windows. How can you even sleep at night? Your silence is acceptance. Your inaction is compliance. To choose complacency, to deny any one person of his or her humanity is an act of hateful hostility and unacceptable violence. Did you hear the cries of the children? Did you finally say enough is enough? What are you willing to risk of your own freedom and comfort to create an America that is open, accessible, and just? America. She said, give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. But what is the value of fresh air if you can't breathe each breath with those in your family? If we separate a child from his parents before we even understand their needs? America, where is your humanity? How many times must history repeat? Did you think of your own family? Did you consider the fear that one must feel leaving their own home? To be a stranger in a new land, a small, vulnerable child, afraid and alone. Could you even bear it? Could your family survive the nightmare? Did you hear the stories of their grueling journey and turned a blind eye and choose to not care? Thank you. All right. Sade, you want to join me?
You took a deep breath at the end of that. And first of all, you deserve it.
Thank you.
Not just for the vocal performance, but the weight of that piece. And I think this is a great time to take a moment and do a quick land acknowledgement. Often when we're hosting live events and hopefully soon in-person events again, we always want to take a moment and acknowledge the Indigenous people who were colonized and faced genocide and made it possible for us to live in the land that we live on today, as well as our ancestors from slavery, who made it possible for us to live in the places in the world we live in today. I am in the land of the Lumbee and Shakori people here in Durham, North Carolina. So we just want to take a moment and acknowledge that, because that came
We're
to
in
my
Charlotte,
mind.
so the Catawba Sugary here. Yeah.
And it came to my mind as we were having that conversation. When we talk about the plight of people, we're talking about people in a specific situation, but those are very humanitarian problems. Those are human problems. And I want to also reflect on a couple of lines. You said you can judge a people based on how they treat their youth, and their trauma is our truth.
Yeah.
That was so powerful to me.
Thank you. So this piece in general was written, like I said, literally, I think the morning of the event, if I'm not mistaken. And I was struggling a lot because if you ask me anything about anything attached to our Blackness, and that's my story. So, and that's not to say that there are not Black people who are immigrants or who are dealing with all of the things that this poem lands on. But I knew specifically the folks that we were talking about. We were discussing the borders down that we're still discussing right now. And I was afraid, really, approaching this piece about whether or not I was the right person to write it. And then someone reminded me of just tell the story. And that is what my job and my goal is, to speak the story. I have opinions about how a lot of the poems, the topics in the poems that I write, and I have political viewpoints and all of those other things. And I couldn't do a poem without those seeping in there. But at the end of the day, my job is to tell the stories. So that was an important piece for that.
The story that you're telling, like as I said, is a human story. While we see this problem coming to light for targeted towards a specific group of people, but this really is, they say there's nothing new under the sun. The fight for freedom for all people is not a new venture. And I want to reflect on a couple of comments that I've seen pop up. I saw Sister Mumu say, in response to the last piece, she said, serving others is how I live like a giant.
Awesome.
I saw Anetta say that this is so great. So I wanted to share some of the feedback that we're getting in the comments and through the YouTube live stream. But I agree with you. I think one of the things I think is so magical about your work is your ability to tell stories in such a vivid way. I feel like when I hear that piece, to me, it strips away, while obviously there are parts of your thoughts or political, social statements that, are inevitably part of what you do. To me, it really strips the issue down to telling a story about a human experience. You were telling a story about people, a person with a soul and a heart and a spirit. And I feel like the work really, it kind of hones in on that aspect of the story and just makes it so much more relatable.
Well, that's always the goal. I think, as many of you might know, my work is grounded in themes of home and belonging and community and all those other things. So I'll go to the next piece, Sade. This was not a commissioned piece by an organization or anything like that. This was a very private piece that I wrote a few years ago. You heard it because I wrote it for my niece. Right before she went off to college, we had a family sort of sending off party for her. And it was a reminder for her. I'm going to share it. And then I'll tell you, Sade, remind me after this, I'll tell y'all a moment that I had with this poem recently. Okay?
All right.
All right, let's go into it. This one is called Roots and Wings. You are growing now, near grown, uprooting now, heading out on your own, leaving home. This is what you and they have dreamed of, the late nights and early mornings chasing goals. It's time to fly at your own speed now. Time to unclench that grasp. Time to let go. But freedom, it isn't always freeing. Emancipation won't often meet your expectations. So pace yourself. When life throws you for a spin, steady yourself in the chaos of the whirlwind. Remember that all great things are nurtured with time. Slow and steady wins the race, and you are ahead. Even when you think that you are behind, there will be those who will never see you, never be able to hold your brilliance up to the light. But as long as you see you and love each inch of you, love each inch of you, love each inch of you, give all that you can with all of your might, and you fight. As long as you fight for every second, scrape for every win, as you choose not to succumb to the pressure and you choose excellence again and again, the goal is not to be a victim, just be vigilant. Not only are you something special, you are significant. So don't be inhibited by the obstacles that will surely come, by the races that you are bound to lose, for the moments when you come up short and you feel like life is defeating you. Seek within your center of gravity. Stand still and steady until you find where you belong. Listen to the sights and the sounds all around you, and know that to somebody somewhere you are something of value, and that whenever you need to, you can always come home. All right.
It's so funny that you said you have like a 360 moment with that. That is the most eloquent version of the conversation that so many people have with their kids as they're going out into the world, that a lot of us probably cannot muster up in in such an eloquent way. And it's, I'm going to share a quick moment before you go to yours. I had a similar conversation with my kids the other day, just about, and I think you wrote that for our niece, and my kids are coming up next.
Mhm.
And it really is a reality check that there comes a time in every person's life where you're embarking out into the world and taking more ownership. And it really is a special time. So tell us about your 360 moment with that piece.
So the piece was written as a family piece, just something to remind my niece before she went to college of who she was, and that she always, we know that college comes with all of the things. And sometimes you forget that, I am tethered to this group of people. I can always come back, right? But in doing this work of uncovering stories and poems about home, and especially communities that are underserved and underrepresented, one thing that I often realize is that everybody don't have a home to come to, and that's something that I try to hold to the light and never forget in my work. But a moment that I had with this poem was back in December. We all know that we've all been going through COVID and everything that comes with that. And there was a group that hired me to do a storytelling class. And then at the end, they invited me to their online holiday party. And this was all for elders, like people who were probably like 65 and older. And I thought I was just there for the party. And at the end, they were like, "Can you do a poem?" And I had really just pulled that poem up on my phone for something else. So I was like, "Yeah, I'll do this one." And I tried to give a disclaimer at the beginning, like this was for a teenager.
No disclaimers.
No disclaimers. And I did the poem. And after I finished, there was a woman who was a much older woman. She clearly was not, going off to college or anything. She was pouring in tears. And she was just like, that was so much of what I needed to hear today. Like, I needed to be reminded that, like, I have somewhere to belong. Like that there are people, somebody somewhere who needs me. And that is what that feeling of home does. That's what that does. So that is why that's one of the pieces that I really love, really love.
And home means so many different things. It means places. Sometimes it means relationships. It means community. Sometimes it means yourself.
Yeah.
Sometimes that home that you have to remember to come back to is yourself. Sister Mumu said we all need that reminder. And I totally agree with her. And, not just home having multiple meanings and different layers to it, but also the idea of going out into something, stepping out into new places and new parts of your life. Just like with the woman who you shared that poem with, you wrote it, for a specific occasion, but we're entering new phases and new places in our lives all the time. And we do need that reminder that we can be centered, be grounded. We can go out, try things, and always come back to whatever that home is for you.
Well, that's okay. I was going to do another piece next, but I think I'm going to do this one then, because that was a perfect segue into it.
Okay.
Switch up. Okay, so this poem came from, this is a commissioned piece from a performance that I did in DC a couple of years ago. The organization, they're in the business of home. They are a collaborative, NACEDA, NACEDA is the name of the organization. And they're a collaborative of all of these different organizations, I think across the country, who work in placemaking and community organizing and that kind of thing. And they asked me to attend their conference, which was amazing. There were people from all over the country there, and just go in and out of the workshops and stuff like that. I led a workshop on something else, but they said at the end, we want you to write a poem. We want you to write a poem after what you experienced. And this poem is also one of my favorites because I feel like now I get to perform it as a love letter to the people in our community and in different ones when I perform it, who do the work of home. I know Annetta is on here, Annetta Watkins Ford, and she's one of those people. So Annetta, this is dedicated to you and the other ones like you who are doing work every day to make our communities stronger and everything that they are. Sade, remind me after this to tell you the story of a line from that poem as it relates to what happened while we were there, okay?
All right.
All right. All right, y'all, this is to the people who hold space. There is something in your story that has inspired you to awaken a force in this world, to assign the kind of purpose on your life that reaches beyond comfort and ease. There is a movement in your footsteps, a method to your process that's beyond what those without vision can understand or believe. You are the ones who hold space. Uniquely craft the experience that we call home. You keep place. Open our hearts to the possibility that there is more than we have considered. You rearrange and reconfigure what community looks like, what family feels like, what our humanity can build like. You hold space. And each day, that you awaken to the reality that some things are not quite right here in our home, that the land that we stand on has not been given the honor that she deserves, that the neighbors that we live with, work, play, exist with are being counted out, underserved. When you see that their value is being devalued, that their experiences are not being seen or heard, that there are systems at play to ensure that communities are displaced, that poverty is here to stay, that the contributions and sacrifices of Black and Brown people are erased. You stand in all of your power and purpose, and you hold space. You make the commitment to be there for yourself and others. You get that the movement is bigger than you. You reach across the table and grab the hands of your sisters and brothers, and you understand that only in tandem with one another can we truly move. You work your way through a system that has strategic barriers designed to halt progress, but you never give up on the mission. You listen to your heart and you follow your intuition, and when you face obstacles, When keeping place feels like too heavy a burden to bear, you remember the small wins and the victories. You find inspiration in the stories of the lives and communities impacted because someone like you chose to care. And when the lights go out, and the powers that be are invested in the assurance that the resources don't flow, you keep your focus on the places and the people, because when we come back into power, we need to be ready to go, to run, to keep creating a world that works for the whole, the all. You have stepped up to the mission and you have answered the call. You are crafting what it means to be at home in a big, wide world that can ostracize and intimidate. You remind us that everyone has a spot, everyone has a place. You have given us all permission to fit in the picture, to belong in the frame. You hold us together and you hold space. Thank you.
All right. So let's hear the story.
So the story,
I'm waiting on the edge of my chair, sis.
It's not that great. So like, don't, this poem, like I said, I wrote it after attending this conference, and the conference was great. It was information all week long about like how we build our communities, and it was right there in 2019. The political climate was crazy. So something happened on day 2. We all woke up, got ready to. We all woke up, and we was in DC. We were in this beautiful hotel, and all the lights were out. Like done, like something happened, a storm or something overnight. I don't know. I slept through it, but the lights were out. And so we had to, something happened. They got a generator, whatever. We started a few hours late. And so there's a line in the poem that says, and when the lights go out and the powers to be, are counting on the fact that the resources won't flow. But when we come back into power, we've got to be ready to go. I was really proud of those lines. Sometimes as a writer, you have those moments where you're like, yes, like, and the people who were there, like they got it. So when I performed it at the event, everybody was like, it was a moment, right? Because they knew what happened. It was like an inside joke that we had with that moment, but the double entendre it's there. Like, we were living in a time then we couldn't have imagined what was going to happen in 2020, but it felt very much like the lights were out. And that, like, we don't know where the resources or anything is coming from. But when we get back into power, we have to be ready to go. And that is now. That's the time we're in now. This has been a year, a time frame for many people of darkness. But the one thing about dark that you better know, the light's coming soon. And so when the lights come on, we have to be ready to go. We can't just, stand around and not be preparing for what is to come. So I love that poem. Every time I do it, I think about different people who I know from our community who are holding space for each of us, and it's really important.
I mean, what do I say after that?
I don't know.
After you hit us when the lights come back on, we have to be ready to go, glow. Like, how do I?
I don't know. Okay, well, we're going to keep moving then. Y'all at home, I'm sharing poems. All of these will be in my book that's coming at the end of the month called I Love Us. If you have comments or questions or anything, please include it in the chat where you're watching from, and we will get it. If it's a question, we'll make sure to address it,
Yep, we're seeing them pop up. We're getting great feedback. People are really enjoying the work, so let's keep it moving.
Okay, so as I told y'all, you, Sade, and y'all at home, I do a lot of poetry that tackles difficult topics. These next 2 pieces were both written years ago and performed years ago, but there's a lot of relevance in them right now, today. I don't know if that's a good thing or not. Either way, a pivotal point here in Charlotte was the Keith Lamont Scott killing. We'll use that word. Some would say murder. And I I remember the place that I was emotionally in my life during that time. And I wrote a poem that was performed. I do my organizing work, or the work that I do around organizing communities, is in using the arts, like to create space for people, to give them space. So I wrote a piece that really expressed how I was feeling during that time and how a lot of other people were feeling too. This is not an easy piece to hear, but I think when I'm talking about loving us, it means all of the parts of us. And love does not always feel mushy and good and all those other things. Sometimes it comes in different forms. So I'm going to do this piece. It's called Black Rage. Let's get into it. And I wrote this shortly right after that time of the Keith Lamont Scott murder, killing, whatever. For the past 3 days, I have been in an unwavering state of perpetual Black rage, anger, so deeply rooted that I'm beginning to fear myself, feeling so complicated I can't even feel myself. I am afraid that my eyes will one day bear witness to what I have subjected them to, that my heart won't give me forgiveness for the thoughts I've put my once open mind through. See, I am angry past anger, hurt past frustration, pain past agony of what is happening in this nation, sick and tired of tears, so fed up with being sad as news anchors confirm all of my fears and another Black body is reduced to a hashtag. Watch these men in heroes' clothing, Napoleon complex their way through murder, deeply rooted racists and bigots slaughter my brothers in cold blood and take Dylan Roof to get a cheeseburger. Black babies in back seats as father figures literally die in front of them, creating PTSD types of situations that will probably always follow them, murder our lovers in front of us, emasculate our kings to peasant status, leave us to explain the injustice system to their babies, got us losing our minds in front of news cameras while we nurse the anguish from our daughters, instill fear in our sons. And I am stuck here in rage, waiting for the next emotion to kick in, hoping for some inspiration past this point, something to cling on to, something to believe in. Perhaps the greatest type of grief is for that of a stranger whose fate was sealed to silence before he ever knew he was in danger. And I can't quantify all of these feelings, can't quite add it up to ever make sense. How can you reduce a human being to lower than animal status and walk away free in the name of serve and protect? And I'm still processing it all, still trying to move past this, hoping to turn the next page. But until these incidents cease to exist, I'll be in a consistent state of perpetual Black rage.
And we're back. You know, I said earlier, there's nothing new under the sun. And unfortunately, this is a narrative that is familiar to a lot of us, a lot of different communities, and again, just to humanity. I know, because obviously we talk a lot, we work together a lot. So I know some of the emotional toll that it can sometimes take to create your poems. Like, I know what it goes into it, but I would like for you to explain kind of how you process your own emotions and then translate that into your writing.
So often I don't even know that, maybe I'm not aware of the breadth of the emotions that I'm feeling. So I know, like, I'm feeling angry, or this is ridiculous, or this makes me sad. You know, I can put those very simple words to it. But when I sit down and I start to write and put pen to paper, then I am able to more fully articulate exactly what I'm doing and what I'm feeling. My poetry for me serves as somewhat of a journal. Like I would have never known. I can say like during that time I was upset and angry if I were looking back now. But if I didn't have those words, I would not have been able to give it the word rage because that's where I was. And a lot of people were in that space and consistently back and forth. I oscillate between that and other emotions, but I have to write it down. Even reading that for me, there were moments that were so uncomfortable for me just now because poetry is putting all of it on the line. Like it's putting everything out there. Like here's me outside of my clothes. Like you now get to see everything exposed, and that's a difficult. That's a rough line to walk sometimes, but it's important because these stories have to be told. Which
And
go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think it's important too because it gives some of the rest of us the words. Like
Yeah.
you said, you would not have been able to pinpoint rage as an emotion that you were feeling in response to that. But I think that poem, your work, and poetry in general gives people a lens through which to kind of analyze and feel their own emotions, and
Hmm.
gives us the words to talk about what we think and what we feel when we can't always find those words ourselves.
Facts.
Thanks,
That's
poet.
Thank you for doing that work for us. Yes. Well, listen, so I wanted to do that poem before this next one, which was a piece that was you were a part of actually. So however many years ago, I know it's really hard to put years with these names and stuff now. Um, we all know the name Trayvon Martin. He was killed by he was killed in I don't know what year it was, but I remember many of us, I don't know that we expected for the man who killed him to walk free. Maybe we did. I don't know. It's hard to really discuss what those feelings were then, but I remember the day that we all found out that he would walk free. I don't know who called me or asked me or whatever, but was asked to share a poem at a just a vigil. Vigils are very different than rallies. The energy is different. So
Mhm.
in holding space of community to just come together and grieve really after this happened. So one thing that I felt that bothered me a lot was I don't think that there was a good job of really telling his story during the trial. I think people tried and they did the best that they could, but he wasn't done honor in that way. So what I thought that I would do, and I rarely do this, like I don't as Hannah say, I'm going to take on someone else's voice. But I decided to write a piece that gave voice to him and his experience and to tell the story of what happened that night. And we decided to add storytelling through song in it as well. So a part that you've sang many times is this refrain that you all will hear in the piece. It was raining that night that everything happened with him. And so we pulled from that to write this piece. So this is a poem that includes song. So it's interesting because those years ago when we did that piece, you had a what a little son, a black son, right? I don't know if he was old enough at the point to really even understand his voice.
No, he was 4 at the time.
So now he understands his voice a little bit more, I think, and he'll do the singing part today. So I'm gonna drop you out, Sade, and we'll bring Elias in. You are welcome, Elias, who's going to share this piece with me. Elias, unmute yourself, please.
Hi guys. Hi.
All right, you ready?
Yep.
All right, let's do it.
Have mercy on me when the rain is pouring down. Let my spirit be free. Have mercy have mercy on me. When the rain is pouring down, let my spirit be free. Have mercy on me. When the rain is pouring down, let my spirit be free.
They say that scent is the closest sense tied to memory, and it smelled crisp that night. Florida air raining down mercy, a calm before the storm kind of night. We talked and we laughed. She kept me company on the other end of the phone. There was something of freedom in the air, and I felt safe enough to walk home alone. Alone. I heard the wheels slowly creeping behind me. There was danger in the air. I guess he was sent there to remind me that I didn't belong there. That boys like me, with a demeanor like mine, that boys like me elicit fear in his eyes, that boys like me are full of suspicion, that boys like me will always fit the description. And he told him, "Don't follow him, sir. We don't need you to do that." But that grown man, he took matters into his own hands and he began to attack. And I protected myself because I had a family to get home to. I am the son of my parents. I have a community that I belong to. I felt fear in my heart as I desperately yelled, "Help me!" And then the bullet went off, and this is what vigilante justice has dealt me. The tears of my father, the pain of my mother, the hurt of my community, the fears of my brother, and countless others. I am Sean Bell. I am Medgar Evers, and I am not alone because we are in this together, being together in this moment. Find peace in your pain and work to ensure that this never, ever, ever happens again. Don't let my life, don't let my death, don't let my murder be in vain. Have mercy.
Have mercy. Have mercy on me. When the rain is pouring down, let my spirit be free. Have mercy. Have mercy on me. When the rain is pouring down, let my spirit be free. So have mercy. Have mercy on me. When the rain is pouring down, let my spirit be free.
Thank you so much, Elias.
Welcome, yeah.
All right, we're gonna bring Sade back in. We'll roll Elias out. I know.
Just a
You're
little
big.
onion cutting that's happening.
Yeah.
Because I remember when that piece was coming together.
Yeah.
I remember when we were trying to, like, you had written the piece with the narrative part of it. And
Yeah.
we were trying to find the right kind of refrain to go musically. And I remember he was just walking around like he was 4 years old. And now he's taking the torch from me, number one, from performing on that piece. But he's my personal Trayvon. Like,
Yeah.
Elias is my child who I worry so much when he wants to jog in the neighborhood by himself, or when he wants to go to the mailbox, when he wants to ride his bike. You know, when you say I love us, when you say this is our home, when you talk about home being community, having a place, all of those things and so much more are just wrapped up into that one piece.
Yeah.
And it just, I don't know, it resonates with me so deeply. And while you were going through and reciting and talking about how a boy like him will always fit the description, seeing Elias next to you on screen was just so poignant and so on point. What does it feel like to take on not just the kind of the mission almost, but emotionally? Like, what does it feel like to take up that mantle?
I think I often don't see it as like taking up a mantle. It kind of feels like there's something inside that needs to get out. So I write only from a place of necessity and what I believe is purpose. So I don't write well poems that are just like for fun poetry.
I know.
Yes, like somebody
for the folks at home, sometimes I'll be like, Hannah, like I have the perfect idea, like, or this is in my spirit, can you write it? And she'll be like, I'm just not in the mood. I don't have the vision right now.
No, because if it's not coming in the way that I believe that, you know, God desires for me to use my voice, then it's not coming. So it's emotional after the fact to hear it, and it hits different. It's one thing to stand beside you and perform it as two Black women, as an auntie, a mother, you know, that type of thing, and to have Elias singing it, the piece with the poem. It's just, that I had to pull myself together.
Yeah, right. The feeling of him asking for mercy.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
It is.
Let's see what you got next.
I think this is based on our time. This will be my last piece. It is, I think, a good way to end. This is a commissioned piece that I wrote. I think it's been about 1.5 years, 2 years ago now. There was a group that was started, or an effort, a project called Charlotte is Beautiful, right before the pandemic, really. And I was asked, basically, what do I think is beautiful about Charlotte? And my response was, I will write it in a poem. This was by Pastor James Howell, if anybody knows him. A lot of people know him, but those who are listening, that is who I was speaking with, and that's who I think him and his wife Lisa and some other folks from their church, their congregation, was behind the Charlotte is Beautiful effort. They wanted to, on social media, just really highlight the beautiful things about Charlotte. And I told him when he asked me, like, I'm going to tell the truth. Like, I do believe Charlotte is beautiful, literally, physically beautiful in so many ways, but also the people, all those other things. And I do believe that beauty is multifaceted. So he asked me to write a poem. I wrote a short one. And then he said, well, we're going to have basically a community conversation around this. Would you perform that poem? I was like, well, it's too short and I got more to say. So I wrote this whole poem, and it was one that a lot of people in Charlotte reached out to me about, felt really connected to. And so we'll end with this, a reminder of what is beautiful about Charlotte and how we can keep it beautiful.
All right, to those who are watching us on YouTube and Facebook, please remember that you can send us your comments and feedback in the chat, and Hannah's going to close us out with our last piece.
Thank you so much, Charlotte. Charlotte is beautiful. I have spent many a day questioning her future, calling her out and calling her in. I have publicly challenged her choices, criticized her politically, charged her to do better. We have a complicated relationship, but ultimately it's because I love her and want her to win. I believe in her. I believe in the possibility of what she can become. She is beautiful now, but that beauty is often a mirage. She is powerful to many, but those within her inner circle acknowledge the facade, know what's under, beneath the surface, in the ground, her roots. We see her secrets, and yet we still love her despite the difficulties of her truth. She is our Charlotte, the city that has opened herself to give us the place that we call home. We have found a sanctuary within her borders. This is where we build our legacies and our memories, where we deepen our connections and find spaces to grow and belong. And because she is ours, we have earned the right to challenge her and demand her growth. Because she belongs to us, we will hold her to higher standards. We want a city that raises the bar and breaks the mold, opens its arms with opportunity and hope, and creates spaces for the most vulnerable within her city to heal and cope. You see, there is no denying that there is an abundance of love here, an overpowering belief in the future of this place. There are people who make it easy to love here, people who have opened their homes and their hearts, people who continuously keep and hold space for this is our city. The place that we will keep fighting for, the place that we will continue to build. This is our city, home to some of the most beautiful and interesting spaces, a city that makes you feel hope, a city that encourages you to dream, a city that is promising and passionate, a city that gives you space to believe. And that's how love works. That's what loving Charlotte means. It's examining the truth of her history and working towards an uplifting legacy. That is where we see her light, and that is where we see her beauty. It is nestled in the details, hidden in the open spaces. It's seen in the nighttime, that beautiful skyline. It is within those who have given to her for multiple generations, those who have lived here because they've had no choice but to live here. For how can we discuss the beautiful of Charlotte and not honor her natives and the ancestors and elders who have built a foundation for a city that honors where she has grown from? Is a city prepared for future greatness. And as far as me, I only want to live in a city, grow and build in a city, love in a city that is willing to do the absolute most to ensure that all that are living here are living up to their God-given potential. I only want to claim a city, stamp me and my family's last name to a city that chases freedom and equality in a way that is monumental. For this is a city that has the ability to transform the way that we all live our lives with radical love. This is a city that holds on to the ability to push far past minimal expectations and be even more amazing than the things that our wildest dreams are made of. Our Charlotte, a city of opportunity, booming with creativity and everything that she needs to take things to the next level, with an abundance of raw talent and people with fresh concepts and new ideas of imaginative work to be done. Charlotte is beautiful. She's so very beautiful, not solely for what she has been, but Charlotte is beautiful for who she is destined to become. All right, that's that. That's Charlotte. She's beautiful. We got work to do, but we're gonna make it happen.
Yeah, and we keep that passion and that hope for the future. So before we close out, I want you to give us, we have like a couple minutes left, I think, based on our time. Tell us about your book. Tell us about, give us 10 seconds about what made you decide that now was the time to bring this to us.
Yes, so my book is coming at the end of this month. And if you're following along, if we're not friends on social media, please follow me so we can be friends. Hannah Hasan. You'll see my name down there right there in the corner. Make sure you get the spelling right because people miss it all the time. My book is called I Love Us. And it's really a love letter, a massive love letter with poems that are about community, that are about resistance and change, and all the things that we can do to make this world the absolute best place that it can be. It was just time. It's time for my voice to be heard and experienced in this way. I will also be releasing some audio versions of the poems on my website that will be available as well. So all of that will be coming at the end of this month or early next month, and I'm happy to share it with